A very good morning to one and all. I hope the voice is audible. One of you participant. Okay, very good morning one and all. I, Ravi Kumar Head from Civil Department. I welcome you all back for the second day online FDP on new generation construction materials and technologies. And also on behalf of Alma Mater, today the session chair will be given by Anupama, who is an alumni. And with this, I request Dr. Shivanna to introduce the speaker of the first session.
Good morning to one and all. I, Dr. Shivanna S., Associate Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, FDP. Happy to introduce Ms. Anupama V.S., Senior Associate, Corporate Sustainability, GIST Impact, as the session speaker for this first session of this two-day faculty development program on new generation construction materials and technologies. Anupama is a sustainability professional during the week and a student of environmental law at National Law School of India University on the weekends. She is an alumni of Civil Engineering Department, FDP 2016 batch. During her engineering days here in the college, she has shown more interest on non-conventional topics such as alternative building materials, watershed management, GIS and remote sensing than others, and hence she took up infrastructure planning for her master's at Center for Environmental Planning and Technology, University, Ahmedabad. Over the last 4 years of her career, she has worked on environmental sustainability, especially on climate change, corporate sustainability, integrated water resource management, and urban sanitation. Anupama's main areas of focus on environmental impact evaluation, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, corporate sustainability, reporting and analytics. In her professional stints, she worked closely with international corporates, wealth management of organizations, governments, and multinational donors to tackle socio-environmental challenges. She is a big believer of community volunteering and has actively volunteered at World Economic Forum's Global Shapers. Now I request Anupama to enlighten us about the sustainable development challenges and opportunities. Hope you will definitely enjoy the topic, which is very interesting because present day most of the countries are talking about the sustainable development challenges and opportunities, as well as how to overcome the challenges and all. So over to you, Anupama.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure and an honor to be, coming to as a part of alumni and presenting this information to all of you. First of all, before we begin, I'd like to request, if possible, for all the participants, please do turn on your video because this session is going to be very interactive and very engaging. So that will help us, be more interactive and keep it super light and fun. If possible, please do turn on your video. If not, it's totally fine and I understand. Thank you for all of you who are turning on your videos. So good morning once again and welcome to this session on sustainable development challenges and opportunities. Before I begin, I'd like to thank MVIT for giving me this opportunity in Civil Department Engineering and all the teachers who are still there and who have taught me when I was there 10 years ago. That makes me feel old, but fret not, I'll keep you updated with all the industrial new norms. Special thanks to Shivanna sir. He's been a mentor to me during my college days and after as well, and which is what has led me to sustainability in my professional journey today. So with that, let's begin. So let me just share my screen and show you the presentation while we walk through. Is my presentation visible to everyone?
Yes, Anupama.
Thank you. So before we dive into what is sustainable development and its challenges and opportunities, I just wanted to also, remember that it's very important for us to first define what is sustainable development, what it is and why should we even be thinking about it? Why is it important for us? So You might have noticed that in most of the sessions, we usually say, don't use your phone and keep it away. But I'll keep it a little different in my session today, and I encourage you all to take up your phones right now and open what is menti.com on your phone browsers. It is menti.com on your phone browsers, and you will be prompted to enter an 8-digit code. So please enter the code that you can see on my screen, which is 35053671. If there is any challenge in opening menti.com, please let me know. Please unmute yourself. Let's keep it super engaging and interactive. So please feel free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat box if there's any query. Are you able to access menti.com? I'll also just type the code in the chat box so that it's useful. So do you see what does sustainable development mean to you in the menti.com when you log in? There you will be prompted to use either one word answer or a two-word phrase. So whatever you think sustainable development means to you or what you understand about it, please do enter your answer, and you will be able to see it on the screen once you have been able to enter it. It can be a one-word answer also, or even 2 words. So whichever you think is, yes, I see one answer called modern life. Let me present my screen so you know what the answers are looking like. Balanced development, interesting. Anything more? Come on, we have 60 of us in this meeting. I would expect at least 60 answers on this screen right now. Let's give it 1 minute so that you can think about it, and then we can move on to what actually the definition is. Any other answers? Okay, so we have balanced development and modern life. That is a very good way of thinking. You know, balanced development is very much sustainable development. Okay, there is also present future development. Thank you for all of your answers. It's very interesting to know that you have some idea of what it means. I see somebody has raised their hand. Please, you can feel free to unmute yourself if you have any query. Okay. There is also some answers in the chat box, which is meeting current demands without compromising the needs of future generation and continuous development. Excellent answers. I mean, of course, I expect nothing but correct answers from MVIT Civil Department. So kudos for that, which is very much the definition which is internationally accepted and followed, which is you make sure that the development is such that it meets the needs of the present generation, which is the current generation, without compromising the ability of the future generations. So what does this mean to us? Which is, say, for example, we need, in a process that we follow in the scientific environment, maybe we need to use water, or maybe we need to use coal, or maybe we need to use electricity. The whole point of sustainable development is that you still end up using it, but make sure that the next generation which comes tomorrow is also able to use the same resources. So that might mean that you use it judiciously, you use it efficiently, you use it maybe lesser than wasting it, or maybe you recycle it. So all of these components encompass into what is called the umbrella of sustainable development. There are various aspects that are under sustainable development, but we will be mostly focusing on what is it that we can do to minimize the harm to the environment and make sure that even the future generation has what it needs, even after we've ended up using what we want. So with that definition clear on mind, we should be now able to understand why is it important to us? Why should we be even thinking? You might be wondering, I'm a civil engineering student. How is this related to me? This is not related to structures. This is not related to materials. Why should I be thinking about it? Well, I would like to tell you that there are several ways in which civil engineering students or even civil engineering professionals use it in their work or in their studies also. The first, which you can see on my screen, is water resources planning, which is, I'm sure, is definitely part of the syllabus as well. So when you think of water resources planning, you make sure that it is efficient, you make sure that it is replenishable, it is recyclable, and it is also, judiciously used. And we also have this subject called alternative building materials, right? So that is also about trying to ensure you reduce cement or you reduce steel, and you get green alternatives in that. Why is it important for us to do that? There are several studies and scientific work that is done to show that manufacturing of cement or manufacturing of steel, it emits a lot of emissions, something called the GHG emissions, greenhouse gases. And these greenhouse gases are the ones which aid towards ozone layer depletion, which increases climate change and global warming. This is something you're already aware of. But as civil engineers, we deal with steel and cement so much and so closely that it is important for us to be aware of what are the alternatives that we can ensure, but still make sure that the strength is still the same and the performance of the building is still intact. Another thing that we should think about is green buildings. When we think of green buildings, it can also be making sure it is climate responsive. So both of them are interrelated. What we mean by that is in Bangalore, you know how the weather is. It is very calm and pleasant. But in other parts of India, say Delhi or Mumbai, the weather can get a little extreme, where it is too hot during summer, it is too cold during winters. So in that cases, we tend to use, say, heaters or AC or any other type of extra equipments to make sure the temperature is more conducive for humans to be there. But when you design a building which is green building or climate responsive structures, you make sure that there is ample sunlight, but it does not heat up the house. You make sure there is good ventilation, but it doesn't become too cold. So you have these gap in the walls, or you have brick structures, or you have more open areas, you have well ventilated spaces. So these are the sort of things as civil engineering students or civil engineering professionals, we can think about these things while we work and make sure that the sustainable development is also aided in that form. So I'll just take a pause to ask if there is any doubt or if you think there are any other ways that civil engineering students or professionals can work. So please feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat box if you think there are other ways. Does anyone have a suggestion? Don't be shy. I mean, when we were civil engineering students, we were not so shy. So I really expect the students to unmute or put it in the chat box what you think are the suggestions, how civil engineering students or professionals can aid towards sustainable development. Any idea? Any thoughts? Okay. When we go for the next prompt, I hope all of you will participate in the journey. So now we have seen how civil engineering and sustainable development are connected to each other. But in this session, I also want you to understand and take away that there are several other professional streams that are also related to sustainable development, and they work interrelated to each other. And it is very important for us to have it as an interactive and a collaborative way of working. So probably another stream which works very closely is law. It might surprise you, but a lot of lawyers study what is called as environmental law and regulations. So in environmental law and regulations, you understand what is the Water Act or what is the Air Act. So does anyone know that India has something called Water Act and Air Act and what it means, or any idea you might have heard about it or read about it in the newspaper? I really encourage all of you to please participate. So any idea if you know about Water Act or Air Act? Okay, I see something has come in the chat box. Sandhya Rani and Tanzil, you have your hands raised. Please go ahead. Are you able to unmute and tell your query, or you can even type it in the chat box? Okay. If there is anything, please do put it in the chat box. Otherwise, you are very, very welcome to unmute yourself and add to the conversation. It's not like only I should be speaking. I really want to hear from you all as well. So going back to the presentation, when it comes to acts such as Water Act and Air Act, these are the central level passed acts which is applicable to the entire country, and there is certain permissible levels which you will definitely study in your last year as well when you do environmental lab in your I think 7th sem. There you will understand what is the permissible limit of BOD, which is biochemical oxygen demand, what is COD, chemical oxygen demand, what is the pH level, what is the turbidity, what is the total suspended solids, total dissolved solids. So all of these things you will definitely work and learn in your tenure as a civil engineering student. And this is also regulation and legally bound in our country. So it is a very excellent initiative that our country has done. And it was done way back in the 1980s. So from a long time, this has been legally included as a mandatory thing to be followed. And the jurisdiction of, say, national agencies such as Central Pollution Control Board, you will be aware that there are these national organizations which are, centrally controlled and centrally led, which say, for example, Pollution Control Board. They ensure that the wastewater which is released into the lakes are, in the permissible limit of the nutrients or the toxic pollutants that can be included in it. Or you make sure that a certain industry is not polluting too much because some of the operations require, burning of certain gases which releases pollution. So there are these long chimneys you might have seen in a factory or an industry picture, that it is polluting the air or it is polluting the water. So all of these things are very much come under the legal obligations. So quite a few lawyers, especially in the environmental law, they make sure that the law is formally followed and it is well within the permissible limit. So another stream that we have now understood is that law also aids in sustainable development. There is another stream of work which might seem different or which might seem new to you, but I'd love to give some information on that, which is finance. So this is something which is picking up very recently in India, but has been going on for the last decade or more in the other developed countries, such as in the Europe or in America. So what happens in finance is there are these financial professionals who work on portfolio sustainability or making sure that the investments are made in a sustainable manner and that it is more green, and when the returns come when you make the investment, it is more equitable and it is more socially acceptable. You might have heard of green bonds as well. I'll probably ask once again if any of you know what green bonds are, because it is very much famous and popular in India very recently in the past 5 years. So if anyone knows what green bonds are, I welcome you to please unmute yourself or put it in the chat box, and I'll give you a minute to think about it if you want it. So does anyone know what is green bonds? And I'll see if there's anything in the chat. Okay, there's a no, but does anyone else have an idea what is green bonds? And Water Act establishes water quality and effluent. That is true. That is true. But right now we're talking about green bonds, and in the last 5 years, it has become really popular in the in our country especially. So if you know anything about green bonds, uh, please feel free to unmute yourself and let us know and share your thoughts. I assume this is a very shy batch, or are you not shy? Okay. I'll, funds for ecological projects. That's very accurate, Kishore. That's a very good answer. And HO research is telling that it's a financing option for environmental investments into support climate, which is perfect. Um, yes. So going back to the presentation, green bonds is something where you support, say, very sustainable projects such as solar power plants or renewable energy, say windmills, or any other renewable energy sources, or getting an alternative for what is the exhaustible sources. Say coal is an exhaustible source that you're all aware of. So if there is an alternative for that and you invest in it, either in the research of it or in the development of it or in the infrastructure. So it can be, the investment can be in any category, but as long as it is, qualified under environmental sustainability or something which is renewable, that is called as green bonds. And in India, the government has been, putting green bonds out in the financial markets, which you will soon know as well. As soon as you graduate, you will enter the financial world and you will know how the bonds and market and shares work. So green bonds are also available for purchase by common citizens like you and I, where we put our money towards, government doing a solar project or making sure there is wind energy being harnessed, something like that. So you invest in it for definitely profit returns, but it is going towards sustainable development. So that all of this comes under finance. Carbon credits is another very interesting topic. There was something called the Kyoto Protocol, which some of you might have heard, that happened in Japan way back in 2015. So what happened in Kyoto Protocol and what is carbon credits is that you get to trade the carbon credits that you have as a country. So internationally, many countries have come together and they have decided that, okay, every country should limit the amount of carbon emissions that a country can emit by due to their process and due to their transport and due to their manufacturing processes. So if a country exceeds that carbon credits, for example, let's assume that MVIT can emit 100 carbon kg, okay? And if we exceed it, if we go to say 120 kgs because we had to do more manufacturing this year, we can trade it with another adjacent country. So in this case, maybe we can go to an adjacent college, and if they have emitted only 80 kgs, so they have 20 left. So we can trade it from them for money. So we give them money and we tell, give us your remaining 20 credits so that our exceeding 20 can be, balanced that way. So in that way, MVIT can say, okay, I have not exceeded my limitations. I have purchased extra carbon from another country, and so my emissions is totally under control. So this is a very international agenda, or sometimes even politically driven. But we will not go into politics of sustainable development for today's session, because that involves a lot of societal norms and social behavior. So for now, we will not concentrate on that. But at the end of the day, what I want you to understand from carbon credits is that you get to trade your credits. Every country has a set predefined credit at the end of the day, and you get to trade it if you have exceeded it. One fun fact that can be like a trivia for all of you is that there is something called a Nordic region that you would have heard of. So this Nordic region consists of 6 countries in the northern area, which is Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, all of that. So all of these countries come in the Nordic region, and for the past 5 years they have been carbon negative or carbon neutral, which means that even though they have, say, 100 kg of permissible emissions that they are allowed to do, but because of their renewable projects or recycling of certain materials, and making sure that their efficiency is high, they have not emitted or they have not exceeded their carbon emission levels at all. So another country, say like China, which has been doing a lot of manufacturing in the last 5 years or more than that, has exceeded its limits, they can purchase those carbon credits from these carbon neutral or carbon negative countries. They can say, we have exceeded our limit, but can you trade yours? And they give money. So this is also to encourage that there is flow of economy and flow of money across the world. So this is more like a very larger agenda than a very country specific agenda. So we've seen three streams now: civil engineering, law, and finance. There is another stream of work which also works with sustainable development, and that is auditing. Mainly it concerns with commerce. So any student or professional who works purely in commerce and business will know about auditing, and some of you might have heard about it as well. When it comes to sustainable development auditing, it is more about regulatory compliance and assurance. What do I mean by that? For example, if there is a wastewater treatment plant in Bangalore and they are, discharging their wastewater into a particular lake, an audit company, or usually they are a third-party verification company, they get to go and inspect what is happening, and they get to measure if it is in the permissible limit or not. And if it is not, and if the wastewater treatment plant is exceeding that limit, they get to issue them notice, or show cause notice, or even sometimes put a penalty in the terms of fine as well. So it can be monetary implications, or it can be sometimes just a warning, or it can be like a reputation compliance, something like that. So there are these auditing professionals who work exclusively on anything related to sustainable development. There is also green certification audit that happens. So when we talked about buildings, green buildings, let's assume that civil engineers and architects are working together and they build a green building, which is very temperature efficient and has ample lighting and ventilation and uses all the recyclable materials in its construction. There are certain auditing companies who are specifically specialized in giving these green certificates. So there's something called LEED certification, LEED. So they go and inspect these buildings, and if it meets all the criteria that is predefined, they get to go and give the certificate and say that yes, this building is green building, it is certified, and it can be showcased as well. So you might have seen in real estate as well that this is a green development area, or it is a green building, or green construction is happening. So all of this is because a certain auditing agency, a third-party verifier, would have come and inspected it and given it that rating or that certificate. So all in all, the main takeaway of this slide that you're seeing on the screen is that there are very different work streams or professions that all combine and work together for sustainable development, and it is very important for us. So of course, I understand, us being in civil engineering field, it is important for us to focus on what we can do, or what civil engineering and sustainable development are related to each other. So let us focus more on that in the upcoming slides. Now another opportunity for you to use your phone again and open menti.com. And now this is for us to understand, okay, now that we've understood it is important, sustainable development, do we know what is happening around us? Do we know what is the status in the world, status in India, what is happening in Bangalore when it comes to sustainable development? So please open your browsers again, open menti.com and enter this 8-digit code. I'll copy this again in the chat box. And this is more to understand, just like a small quiz to understand, do we know what is happening and what is the status around us? I'm just putting it in the chat box. Are you able to open it? If not, please let me know, and I can help in any way. Which of the following emits more carbon emissions globally? So it's important to understand that this is talking about the entire world and not just India or Bangalore or any other sense. So there are 4 options: heating or cooling. So that can be using an AC in the house, using any sort of heating equipments in the house. Another one is transportation, which involves everything: logistics, self-transport, or any other transport. Agriculture, that is for growing things. You need energy for that as well. And then there is plastic and steel industries. And I see that 2 answers have gone towards plastic and steel industries, but I'll give you a minute or 2 to think about it and enter what you think is the correct answer here. So yes. Only 3 votes. Let us hope we hit at least 20 votes. There are more of us. And all of them are actually very, very near to each other. So it's a tricky question. Just a heads up. But yeah, there are no wrong answers. Feel free to put. 5 votes. Let's get it up to 20 votes. It's an interesting way to understand what all of us think is the answer. So I definitely encourage everybody to open menti.com, put the code, and answer your question. There's another quiz question as well after this. So yes. Let's give it another 15 seconds if anybody wants to vote and let us know your answer. And there's nothing wrong. So if you think there is some, even if you want to just take a guess, go for it. Okay. I think we should close this now. So we have 5 answers, and the majority of the answers are going towards plastic and steel industries, which is the correct answer. So yay, kudos. So it is true that plastic and steel manufacturing requires a lot of carbon emissions, and globally, a lot of it is manufactured around the world, which is why that has the most emissions. But interesting thing for us to remember is that the second most emitting carbon emissions globally is actually agriculture. It might seem, non-intuitive. It might seem like, hey, that's not possible. Agriculture is actually green. Agriculture is something that feeds food for us. It can't be polluting or it can't be emitting carbon emissions. But it is true. Agriculture is the second, second thing as soon as plastic and steel industries, because that involves a lot of transportation. It involves manufacturing of these pesticides and those sort of chemicals, fertilizers, and it also involves a lot of water usage sometimes, which goes, the efficiency of it is not very high, so it goes as a wastage. It goes into the drains, and once the fertilizers and chemicals are used, the water becomes polluted. So it is actually polluting the water resources that it is going and joining. So considering all of those sources, agriculture is a close second follower of the highest emitting field. The next is transportation. Transportation, you are very much aware, that we use every day, and we all talk about there is so much pollution on the roads, or so much emissions are coming from the vehicles. But more than road transportation, the biggest emitter is the air transport that you might know. These flights that some of us usually take, which is beyond crossing a certain ocean, it's called transatlantic flights. So when you take such flights, there's a lot of emissions that are used because of the fuel that is used in these airplanes. And the next last emitting carbon emissions globally is the heating and cooling. So when someone says, don't use AC so much, or don't use heating so much, you can tell them that, hey, there are some other things that are polluting more. But all in just kidding, do not use that as an excuse to use electricity unjudiciously. So there's another quiz question, and right now we've had 5 responses. I hope we get more for the next one, which is, 1 second. Yeah. Now that we looked at it globally, we want to look at it in India wise now. In India, what is the green cover percentage? What do I mean by green cover is that it can be a forest cover, or it can be trees in the park, or it can be just trees in the residential areas, or in other institutional areas. So what you think is the green cover percentage in India, please go ahead and choose that option. There are 3 responses. Very nice. Let's get it to at least some more than 5. It's the same code, so you don't have to change the code. It's the same code. It'll come on your screen. So nobody thinks there is 5%, huh? You all think we have more green cover. Nice. We have 7 responses. That is more than the previous one. So good. We'll give it another 30 seconds. If anyone wants to take a guess, go ahead. Okay, so we have 8 responses, which is definitely an improvement from the last time. So thank you for everyone who's voted. The correct answer is actually 24.6%. It might seem like a high percent, and 4 of you have guessed it, so good job on that. It might seem like a high percentage, but it actually is not when you compare it with other countries, especially the developing countries like, say, China, or certain countries in Africa, or certain countries in the Latin America, who are all on the same economic status as India. We're still developing, but we're developing at a good rate. We are very much low in that rank, in that entire list, because when this is for the entire country, right? But when you look at it per person, it comes to very much 6%, something like that, which is very low, because say countries like Brazil or China or Sri Lanka, they have more. They have like 2% or 3%. So that is more like something that we should think about. Do we have enough green cover? Do we want more? That is something definitely that as individuals, as sustainability professionals, and as the government, something that we all should think about. But good job on answering the questions correctly. We'll go back to the presentation right now. So now that we've understood, or got a little bit of idea about what's happening globally and what's happening in the country, one last quiz I have is about Bangalore. Because you would all be very familiar with the city, and you will know what is the status in Bangalore. And you will also know that one popular dialogue that is used by everyone is that, oh, there were a lot of lakes in Bangalore. This was a city of lakes. We had a lot of lakes which were interconnected with each other. There was a lot of water, but now all of it has dried up. So what do you think were the original number of lakes that Bangalore had, say, 100 years ago? Not more than that, but yeah. What do you think was the original number of lakes that our city had? And feel free to put it in the chat box, or you can even unmute yourself and say the answer. Anyone? Any guesses? It's just a number, and don't be don't hesitate to take a guess as well. So what do you think were the number of lakes? And it can be an approximate figure as well. They need not be accurate. So any idea of how many lakes originally Bangalore had? Take a guess, and it's completely fine. Okay, I can give the answer, which is it was more than 1,000 lakes. And that might seem like a huge number. That's only because there were that many lakes much before, say, even 50 years ago, these many lakes were there. So you might have heard sometimes, either our grandmothers or grandfathers tell that there were a lot of lakes and they would visit it in, say, the mornings or the evenings. And as a city, we had a lot of lakes which were interconnected with each other, which is, say, if one particular, due to rainfall, if there was water collected in one particular lake, it would automatically trickle down and fill the other lakes, equally, so that all the citizens or all the residents actually across the city could have access to these lakes. So that was the original condition. But a lot of progress and a lot of development and a lot of pollution has happened in the last 50 years or last 100 years as well. So the number of lakes has reduced. So the next and the last question, I promise, is how many lakes do you think we have now? Originally, we had more than 1,000. But now, what do you think is the number? And you might have visited these lakes, right? Like there is a lake in Lalbagh, there is Yedur Lake, there is Vartur Lake, Pelandur Lake, Puttenhalli Lake, so many lakes like that. So you might have visited or even heard about it. So how many do you think our city has right now? And I really, really want someone to put it in the chat box or someone to like unmute yourself and give a number. And any guesses are fine. Yes, can you please speak a little louder? Around how much?
200.
200. Okay, that is one guess, which is very close to the accurate answer. So does anyone else want to take a guess?
Earlier also at 600, 2014 data.
Sorry, your voice is breaking. I don't know if it's just me.
Earlier also,
Uh-huh.
I only had put 600.
Oh, 600. Okay.
That was 2014 data.
Okay. Okay. We're talking in data. Nice. I really like the accuracy we are following for this. But 200 was much more closer. So that's the hint I want to give everyone. So what do you think is the current number?
Maybe lesser, obviously.
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Something like 150.
That's a close guess.
Yeah. Oh, lesser than that. That means only 120 or 130.
Yes. Unfortunately, the answer is it is 96.
Oh
So
my
it is less than 100. And if
Very
you
bad.
look at just 50 years in the last, comparison, it's a very small amount of time or a very less amount of duration in which, 90% reduction has happened. So that is something that has to cause worry.
Very bad.
Yes, exactly. And this is something, all of us should be aware of. All of us should probably think about, can we do something about this? Or can something else be done by someone else and maybe you can contribute to it? So the idea for me to ask these questions in the quiz and also in this is to just give you a small picture of what is the status right now of the environment around us, so that this can probably induce some interest in you to take a look at it closer or involve yourself in this fully. So there are quite a few challenges why sustainable development is in the state that it is, or the environment is in the state that it is. And there are many challenges, but what I have done here is club it and put it into 5 main challenges. So we'll go one by one, and if you have anything to add for all of these challenges, please feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. All right. So the first challenge that we can notice is that there is very less spending on any project or any initiative towards sustainable development. When it comes to spending, we usually think of, okay, government should spend on it, or they collect taxes from us, so they should do something about it, which is a very valid thought and a very valid concern. But when you look at how much money they're putting into it, when we look at the budget or when we look at their spending, annual reports, you see that there is less than 3% of the total budget or less than 2% of the total budget, which is going towards the sustainable development. It is slowly picking up, but it is still insufficient to the amount that is actually required. Studies say that more than 6% or 7% would be, a good number. But sadly, we are still at 2 and 3%. So it's still picking up, but not as much as it should have. And you will, another valid thought that you might think is there are a lot of NGOs, there are a lot of citizen action groups, resident welfare association, or any other volunteer organizations that work extensively on this, which is true. You will see that there are a lot of tree planting drives, or, clearing the plastic from a lake, or going to a park and, talking about these challenges. You would have seen this. You would have seen it on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You would have seen these pictures. You would have heard about this in the newspapers as well. But the challenge with that is the NGOs, in comparison to the government or in comparison to the amount that is required, are so small, and that their spending will also be smaller, and the reach that they have will also be smaller. A very good example is of Puttenahalli Lake. So there is a lake called Puttenahalli Lake. It is very near to JP Nagara in Bangalore. So there was a resident welfare association who came together, led by one Miss Sushila. And so what they did is that they got together. They're like, this is our lake. This is our area. We have to conserve this lake. So they raised funds. They asked, corporates, or they asked for NGOs to come together, put in funds, and they started conserving the lake. So at the end of around 2 or 3 years, they were able to conserve the lake fully. So when the rainfall season came, the water was filled in the lakes and everything was great. So, this was very, very much talked about in social media or even in the newspapers. And this was very much as a case study. It was presented when, anyone studies about environment and lakes in Bangalore, especially, everybody will know about this example. So it became that popular. But what I want to highlight here is that it was one lake out of the 96 lakes that are there in Bangalore, right? So no matter how much the citizens and the NGOs and all of those come together, they can only do so much. But whereas if a government passes a rule, or they decide to spend a certain amount of budget on this, or they give it to BWSSB or BBMP, more number of lakes can be reached. So that is the point I want to highlight here, that there are very, very many organizations that are working towards it, but unless the government or the law, mandates it, it is very difficult to achieve achieve it at a larger scale. So that is one main challenge, which is low spending. Another challenge is low return on investment. ROI is return on investment. So what does this mean is that even if you put a lot of money into it, it requires, a lot of capital upfront. Capital is also the money that is spent at the first time you start a project. You would have heard about it. So capital investment versus operational investment. Operational investment is something that happens every year, but capital investment is what you require at the start of it, before you do any infrastructure project or any project that requires a lot of money. So say even if government wants to do, say, conserve all the lakes, they want to put a bund around every lake, they want to put a fence around it, and they want to put all these channels through which the water can reach the lake. Even if they want to do it, it's a lot of money that is, required and that is needed to be put upfront. So, all of a sudden they'll have to spend hundreds and hundreds of crores, which is not feasible for any government or any organization for that matter. So the return on investment actually comes, as per studies, it comes only after 15 years. Even in solar panels, you would have understood, in solar water heater or solar panels, when it is put in the houses or, organizations, immediately you need a lot of capital. And at the end of only 14 or 15 years is when you start making profit. Until then, you are just spending money every year. So that's the reason a lot of organizations or government, they step away from investing in sustainable development initiatives or green projects, because it requires a lot of money for a long period of time until it starts giving you profit, or you can reap benefits out of it. So that is another challenge why this is a little bit ignored or neglected. Another challenge is also related to legal obligations, and this ties to what we saw in the previous slide, that law is also related to sustainable development. So when it comes to legal obligations, it is not very high as such in India. And I'm talking in the Indian context for now, because we understand this context very well. So I'm talking only about the Indian context when it comes to the challenges. So when it comes to the legal obligations, if somebody is polluting, say a real estate development, you would have heard that there are several lake water beds or these watershed areas where overnight some construction debris is put into it, or sand is put into it, or silt is put into it, and then all of a sudden there is this real estate property that is created, or land is created, it is leveled down, and plots are being created. So these sort of things, although they do come under the radar of the government or the investigating agencies, it is not legally criminalized as of now in India. So that also becomes a challenge. So it becomes easier for those who want to take advantage of such situations to just go ahead, use their power, use their money to do this and not be affected by the law as such. And why this is also there is one main reason is this lack of awareness. There are quite a few people who are aware of it, but the number is not very high for it to turn into a law overnight, or for the government to kind of have these legal implications being put on these sort of actors in the society. So another challenge is the legal obligations. The last one that I really want to highlight, and which is of very much interest to all of you students, especially who are attending this session, is that there is very little trained professionals in sustainable development. And you might have noticed that, let us take a very crude example, which is, are there any course called sustainable development or green building or say climate change in our degrees? Not really. Or is it there in any of the mandatory subjects? Again, not really. It is there as optional, but not, in many fields, it's not really mandated. And you can only learn about this when you go to the job, or when you do a course on, say, Coursera or Udemy or something like that. So they are not available in the conventional schools and colleges, but they are available as an extra, as an optional. So only if they are interested, they can go and understand about it. So what that is creating is that when people come into profession, and when there are jobs in sustainability that people want to hire, there are very little people who are properly skilled and properly trained to do such a job. So that is also causing, less workforce who's working and talking about these things, or propagating about these things, and creating awareness. So these are like the four main challenges that I'd definitely like to highlight. And for now, there are quite a few opportunities how these challenges can be tackled. But before we go to that, I'd like to take a pause. And if there's anyone in the session who thinks there is any other challenge for sustainable development, I welcome you to please unmute yourself or participate and let us know what you think is another challenge. If you think there's any other problem or obstacle, please feel free to share with us right now, and I'll just go back to the meeting for a moment. Do any of you think there are other challenges that are possibly hindering environmental protection or conservation? You can tell any opinion you would have had, or anything you've read in the newspaper, or something you've heard about someone conversing in your household or in the college. So do you think there are other challenges that is something preventing environmental progress? Yes, please, Tanzil, go ahead.
Lack of knowledge among individuals.
Your voice is not audible. Can you please be a little louder?
Lack of knowledge among individuals. Awareness is required. Awareness is not there among individuals.
Awareness is not there. That's what I heard. Was there anything else you said?
Lack of awareness among individuals.
True. Lack of awareness among individuals. That's a very good challenge that you've brought into discussion. That is true. And it is again related to what we just spoke about. First step in direction of building is using current material sustainability rather than trying to develop new materials. That's a very good point, Kamal, that you have raised, which is rather than trying to develop new materials, we can use the currently available ones. And you would have read in your studies as well that there are very traditional ways of construction as well. And those sort of materials can be infused into the current technology and can be used as a green building materials as well. A very nice challenge that you've highlighted. Changing climatic conditions. That is true. That's something, Kishore, you've opened up like a Pandora box. It is not in our hands, unfortunately. Changing climatic conditions is, the way it is changing, we are not able to predict at all. Even if there are storms coming, even if there is a drought, even if there is a flood, with all the technology and all the progress that has happened scientifically, we are still not able to predict it. It's because the climate and Mother Nature works in ways that we still haven't been able to understand. So that's a very, very big challenge that you have highlighted. So thanks. Reuse and recycling of plastic, right? So that can, I would come to that a little later, which is that can be an opportunity for us. So there are these challenges that we are facing. So if we can adopt reusing and recycling of plastic, that is definitely an opportunity or something that we can, as individuals, contribute to the society or towards environmental protection. Great, thank you so much for sharing the challenges and your thoughts. So let's go back to the presentation and see what is the opportunity for every challenge that we have seen so far. So we've seen 4 challenges, and I don't want to give a very negative picture of what is happening in the environment. There's a lot of optimistic things that are happening. So let us go to the opportunities now. So for the low spending that I was talking about in the previous slide, the funds are definitely increasing. Like I said in the previous slide as well, it is slowly increasing, but not as much, but it is definitely increasing. So that is a positive thing that we should definitely, understand and appreciate. And why this is happening, why funds are increasing, even though, if you make it optional, maybe not a lot of governments will actually spend, but why is it still happening is due to these international summits or the global summits. So you might have heard of COP27, COP28. Has anyone heard of it? If yes, I'd love to hear, what you've heard about it or what you know about it. Does anyone know what is COP and what was COP27? What's COP28 that is upcoming? Okay. Conference of Parties. It's exactly, Rinki. Very good. So Conference of Parties is something that happens annually around the world, and every year it's like FIFA World Cup. FIFA World Cup, right? So how every country hosts FIFA World Cup every year. So COP is also hosted by all the countries. Every country every year. So COP27 already happened sometime in October and November in 2022, and it happened in Egypt. So now COP28 is going to come this year, and it's going to happen in Dubai. Yes, it was a conference on climate change. Yes, Kishore, it was in UAE, correct. It's in UAE this year. So it's going to happen in Dubai this year. The number 27, 28 is just the number of times it has happened. So this is the 28th meeting that will happen. So COP27 was the 27th meeting that happened. So it's an annual meeting. So that's the number that is associated with it. Why is it important for us to be aware of Conference of Parties is that there are these, like I was mentioning in the previous conversation, there are these countries who have come together and who have taken initiative. And, it is actually more than 190 countries. We have more than 212 countries, if I'm not wrong. So around 190 countries have come together, so which is a very good percentage, more than 85% of the countries in the entire world. They've come together and they have accepted climate change and sustainable development as their agenda, as something that they all want to collectively work on. And they hold these annual Conference of Parties. So in the same way that I asked you about COP, can anyone tell me what is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? Because that is also a global agenda that a lot of countries are following, including India. So does anyone know what is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? What are those goals? How many are there? Anything that you know? It's also called SDGs, like the abbreviation, Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And there are a lot of organizations working on it. So if anyone has heard about it, please share your thoughts. Social, environment, economic. Yes, those are the areas that they address using the SDGs. So That's definitely, the areas that we should be thinking about. But do we know what are these SDGs, or what is SDG at all, and how it is affecting, say, countries like India and countries all around the world? Okay, no problem. I'll take that as a no. And so what is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is that in 2015, a lot of countries, they came together, afford clean energy. That's true. That's one of the goals, Kishore, in the Sustainable Development Goals. So what happened is that in 2015, a lot of countries came together and they signed a treaty. So this is legally mandated. So I was telling you, right, like law is also a part of sustainable development. So all the countries came together and they've signed a paper. So it's like mandated, it is out in the public, everybody knows it. And India is a part of those list of countries. So what we did, all the countries came together, we signed a paper telling we will adopt sustainable development goals, we will put it as a part of our agenda in our country's development and progress, and we will make sure we add to it, like we will contribute towards these goals. So this is legally adopted document that many countries have signed, including India. So what are these sustainable development goals? There are 17 of them, and they come in various aspects. One is about clean energy, like how Kishore has highlighted here. There is one on education, there is one on gender equality, clean water. There is also on life underwater, so marine life and marine biology restoration. There is also air, so clean air. There is also something on cooperation between the countries, like if all the countries want to come together and cooperate in terms of how they want to do the trading, how they want to produce something or manufacture something, it is important for us to cooperate with all the countries who have signed it. It's legally mandated. So such things, when they have come into force. And another important thing for us to remember is that 2015 we signed the treaty, and the goal here is 2030. So right now we're in 2023. We have finished 7 years. There's another 7 years to go. So a lot of companies, like private companies, NGOs, when you open their websites, you will definitely see this word UN SDGs. So make sure next time you open any organization's website or you read the annual report of the governments, you make sure you notice these words, because it's very important. So when you go out into the professional world after you've graduated from MBIT, you will definitely hear it in the conversation in your company or in the industry. So this is something that has raised awareness in all these countries, and that is why the spending is slowly increasing. So the credit definitely goes to these global summits. So let us go back to the opportunity slide. So first one is the funds are increasing. So thanks to these global summits. The second one is there is a new way of looking at return on investment. So in the previous slide, we saw that even though you put a lot of money, the return is very late, or it is very low. So there is a new way to look at it. So not just in terms of, okay, if I put 100 rupees, I want 110 rupees after a year. That is one way to look at it. So that is purely looking at money. So the financial lens. But what has happened in the industry, and it's a very recent change that has come to India, is looking at it beyond just financial and looking at it through social or human lens. So what do I mean by it? Say, for example, that 100 rupees, we put it for village development, or farmer education in agriculture, or say women empowerment. You put it in under these brackets which are specifically related to sustainable development. There is a way of looking at it from the social lens. So socially, you're creating value, which is you're empowering these women, you are giving education to these farmers, and you are improving this village, or making rural development possible. So there is that there is that value, social value, which cannot be put money for. It is very much say an example, very crude example to understand it is your mother cooks food for you every day. That is something that we all know, but you can't put a value to it, right? Like you can't put, okay, this is worth this much rupees, because it's a social thing that she does it out of love, and you eat it out of love as well, and there is so much nutrition and family goals that are hidden inside it that you can't put a value to it. It's very much similar to that. So when you when you put money into such development initiatives which are related to sustainable development, there is a social value which comes out of it, which is much, much more than what the financial return is. So that cannot be valued. But in the recent times, there is frameworks and papers and a lot of research that has happened into understanding what that value is as well. We'll not go into that. It's a very complex thing that is newly developing, so we'll not go into that. But what I want you to understand from this is that more than just the money, there is social value that is created. Similarly, there is a human lens as well, or a human capital lens, which is, say, a women empowerment program, a women in attends that program and gains skills. Either it can be any sort of say vocational training that she receives some skills, and at the end of the program she is empowered with these skills. Then she can use this skill to probably get another job, or make more money by using that skill, or upgrade and get a higher paying job, or get a raise. So that there is that change that is happening in terms for that human who has attended that training. So that value is also calculated and also captured. So what we are trying to understand here is that it's not just the money, you put 100 rupees and you get back 110 rupees. Not just that, there is a social value also that is created. There is a human capital value also that is created. So when you look at it from that lens, any sort of investment becomes, much more favorable, and you would want to, other private companies or these wealth management firms will start accepting this, that, okay, it's not just the profit that I'm looking at. I'm creating these other intangible, unconventional values, which are very much appreciated and the need of the hour in society. So that's another opportunity we have for the challenge that we saw previously. Another opportunity for the legal challenge that I was talking about, that there are very few legal restrictions or laws that bind these organizations in India. Recently in 2019, India adopted what is called as the BRSR. So BRSR stands for Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. So let's take, for example, there is a company in Bangalore. What they have to do, they have to every year publish their annual report, which you are aware of. And usually what happens, these annual reports are publicly available. You can go on their website and you can check for annual report and you will be able to download it. Now what has happened, there is something called Securities Exchange Board of India, SEBI, S-E-B-I. So they passed this rule that there are these top 500 earning companies. What do I mean by top 500 earning companies? Is that based on their revenue, based on their annual profit, there are 500 companies in India, top 500, who are making a lot of profit, and they have a very good revenue every year. So all those 500 companies, for example, say Godrej or Tata Steel or Tech Mahindra or Wipro or Infosys, all of these companies are very big companies in India who have a lot of revenue and are making profit every year. So because they have that much money and that much strength and power to do something new and adopt something sustainable, SEBI has mandated it that these companies should include sustainability reporting in their annual report, and it is mandated. They are legally bound to do it. So if you go to their website now and see their annual report, you will see another section which earlier was not there, but now it is there. They have to mention, how much water have they used. Say they have used 100 gallons of water in that year, and they have recycled 20 gallons of water. So 20% recycling is there. They have used, say, 100 kgs of plastic, of which they have recycled 50 kgs of plastic. So these sort of information is something that they should collect and they should report mandatorily. So what happens, the whole idea behind this initiative is that these top 500 companies can act as inspiration for the rest of the companies, and slowly they will expand this mandate for, say, after 2-3 years. It's still in talks, it's not official, but it's still in talks that after 2-3 years, if you turn from 500 companies to 1,000 companies, and then say 5,000 companies, like that, slowly you expand it to all the companies, such that every company is then thinking of, okay, what is my environmental footprint? How much water am I consuming? How much plastic am I recycling? How much emissions is my transportation causing? So that will develop this sort of awareness and, this sort of initiative that everybody, all stakeholders in the country will slowly start thinking on. So this is another opportunity and a good move that has happened. we are coming to the last opportunity, which is the jobs in demand. So in the previous challenge, we saw that there are very few trained professionals and skilled professionals. So what has happened actually in the industry in the last 5 years? So there was no division in any company called sustainability. There wasn't any division, and there was no job role also for that matter. So recently, because legally it is coming, and in the Europe or in America these things are adopted, so it's going to slowly come to India. They have started this separate division called sustainability. So for example, Godrej has this sub industry called Godrej Properties, which you might be aware of. So Godrej Properties now has in its employees a separate division called sustainability. So they they hire people or they train people to make sure they are able to make sure that the Godrej properties are green certified, that they are green buildings, that they recycle and the materials used are green, those sort of things, which was not at all present before, but now it is present. What this means for a civil engineering student like you or an aspiring professional like you is that there are these opportunities once you graduate from your college and you go out in the job industry, in the job market. There are these jobs that are out open, and there is a lot of demand for that. So you can definitely pursue some of those if this is something that interests you. There is definitely an opportunity. So that is something I want to highlight, that it has slowly started in India. So it is definitely the right time for you to pursue those jobs in the market if you're interested in this topic. So the whole point of this opportunity is that there is a positive lens to look at everything. Although there are a lot of negative things happening in the environment and there is so much degradation and pollution that is happening, there is still some hope left, and there is still some optimistic lens that we can still adopt. So that is the whole takeaway I want you to focus on. That comes to, who are these people who can contribute to sustainable development? I'll probably do this a little quicker because we've already gone through it. So we have understood that government can influence sustainable development. There are these private companies as well. You would have heard of this act called CSR Act, which is Corporate Social Responsibility Act. So what does that act say legally is that every company has to spend 2% of their profit into any sustainable development project. So say a company like Shell, which makes a lot of profits. So 2% of their profit is nothing for them. But that's a lot of money for sustainable development. So they can probably use it for lake restoration or plastic recycling or rainwater harvesting, something like that. So they are mandated to spend their profit into the sustainable development initiatives. There are also international organizations who drive these agendas, like SDGs is also one of them, United Nations being the leader in such aspects. There are also NGOs that you will definitely know are working towards these things. And us as individuals in our personal life, we can also contribute and make a difference. And sustainability professionals, anyways, they do it in their job as well. So we'll focus on these two for now, which is as individuals, what can we do? As sustainability professionals, what can we do? So now again, I would like to open it up for discussion. What do you think individuals can do? I saw somebody had written, you can recycle plastic. Are there any other eco-friendly measures you think we can adopt? And are you following any of those in your personal life? Please feel free to share. Let's make it more interactive. I can go first. I can tell what I do. Say, for example, I carry a cloth reusable bag everywhere I travel. It's always, folded and kept in my bag, so that if I end up making a purchase, I don't ask for a plastic bag or I don't ask for an extra bag. I always have a bag in my with me, which I can use. So that is something that as individuals we can probably adopt. So is there anything that you do, or is there anything that you think individuals can do? I see upcycling. That's a very good word. That's true. Upcycling is what upcycling usually means is that you take one object and you make it into, you use it to reuse to another purpose, or you upcycle to make it be multi-purpose. Say, for example, say there is an old phone in your house which doesn't work anymore, but you can use it as probably like a decorative item in your art project, or you can probably take those keys and put it in your for some other purpose. So that's the whole point of upcycling. That is, you use it for a different purpose and make sure that the life cycle of it is expanded. What else do you think individuals can do? Or if there is something that you do in your personal life, I'll be very happy to hear about it. Anything that you think we do in our houses or at college? Is there any initiative you people have started? Anything that you would like to share, please do so. Let me give you another example. So in the houses, when we prepare rice, you would have seen that we wash the rice using water. And sometimes you would have seen who is cooking, not especially the mother. I don't want to put it as a gender stereotypical thing, but usually when mothers do the cooking, they wash the rice, and that water they use it for putting into the pots or into the garden. So that is another way of recycling and conserving water, which we have been doing traditionally from a lot of time. So it does not require any equipment, it does not require extra time, but it definitely conserves a lot of water. So that's another way that individuals can probably work and help towards the environment. So I'll give you another chance. Somebody wants to unmute themselves and tell what is it that individuals can probably do. You can even put it in the chat box. So anything that you're comfortable with. Okay, no problem. I'll share some examples of what individuals can probably do in their life. So you can, if somebody is interested, they can join an NGO or an organization which volunteers for these environmental protection. So there are quite a few NGOs in Bangalore, in India as well, and I will share some of the resources at the end of this presentation, which you can join in your free time. Say you decide, okay, every 15 days or every week, I'll spend 2 hours or 4 hours with that organization. And you can go and see what they're doing and help them in the activity, volunteer. What this does is you will have that sense of responsibility. You will have that sense of satisfaction that you have contributed to the environment and you have done your bit to the society. You've brought about a change, you've contributed to it. And it will also help you in meeting new people and understanding what others look like and what others are thinking about, what efforts go into it. So this is definitely something, if you're interested, you should do, and I highly, highly encourage. Another thing is you can attend government organized events. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is something called Water Adalat. Adalat is a Hindi word for court or like a gathering. So Water Adalat in Bangalore happens every fortnight, every 15 days in a BWSSP office in Sadashiv Nagar. So this is also advertised in newspapers. You would have seen on page 3 or page 2, you can see what date and what time this Water Adalat is happening. What happens in this event is that people can go and they can raise complaints, or they can talk about their queries. Like they can say there is no water connection in this particular apartment, or water pressure is not high, so it's not reaching, like say, third floor or fourth floor, or that there's some water leakage and that is causing something. So these sort of issues you can definitely write to the government, or you can raise it in your resident welfare association. But if there is something that you want to tell in person to the BWSSB office, you can do so in these water adalats. So attending these government organized events will give you an idea, okay, in this area what is happening, in that area what is happening. So that will give you an idea of what is the situation, of what is happening environmentally in the city that you are currently residing in. Another thing is educating yourself. Like all of you correctly said that there is lack of awareness. And that's a very good point. There's a lack of awareness in what can be done in the city or in your state or in your country. So it's definitely important for us to be aware of that. Like I want to especially mention that there are these initiatives that you can get a subsidy if you opt for a solar water heater in your house, or if you buy an electric vehicle. So government is trying to do these sort of initiatives so that people are encouraged to go invest in these options. So it's important to educate oneself in this. So next time you want to buy a two-wheeler or a car, you can think that there is an option like this. That it's not possible or it's not available. It is definitely there, and if you're interested, you can go for that choice. And another thing is, of course, low impact lifestyle. In your personal life, how are you conserving water, or how are you making sure there is less waste that is going out, or not using plastic, or recycling as much as you can, and upcycling, like somebody mentioned just now. So these sort of things individuals can definitely do. I'm conscious of the time that we have only 10 minutes left, and I really want to spend some time on question and answers. So I'll skip the next slide, but I'll definitely share this presentation with all of you so that you can have a look at your own time and go through it and reference it whenever you want. So I'll probably skip the next slide and go to the last one, which is the resources that I would definitely encourage all of you to keep an eye on. So, in the world, there are several organizations that you can probably follow, and they have, all of you are millennials. So they have Instagram pages that you can follow. They have Facebook pages that you can follow, or they also, put articles in the newspaper. So worldwide, internationally, there is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that I just mentioned. They do a lot of fellowship or summer schools or even workshops. They do a lot of that fun activities through which you can get to know what are these goals and how you can contribute to it. So I definitely recommend you to go to their website and take a look. There's also something called SDSN, which is specifically for students. So I hope like you as students would be interested to join this. It's just like a network of students who are interested in sustainable development, and there are these podcasts or webinars or fortnightly calls that happen that you can online meet yourselves and discuss on what you can do and what initiatives you're doing. So this, I have definitely personally been a part of these organizations previously, and I have learned a lot. So I will definitely recommend it to you. When it comes to our country, India-wide, there is something called Center for Science and Environment. You might have heard about it. It is based in Delhi, and they release a fortnightly magazine as well, which is available online. Again, CSE also has an Instagram page. If you're interested, you can follow that. So, you will, in your social media, it's not just other things, or, it's not just for entertainment that you're using, but you're also consuming knowledge. And there is something called NEERI, which is, the headquarters is in Bhopal, but it is definitely, offices are present, regional offices are present all around the country. And that specifically deals with, environmental wastewater discharge or water conservation or air pollution or those sort of things. So NEERI is again a national organization, government approved, which is doing a lot of good work. And if you have the time, you should definitely check out their website. And they also publish a lot of papers. They have annual paper presentation and webinar as well, so you can get access to those resources as well. And lastly, when it comes to our city, there are a lot of organizations, NGOs that are working, and I'd highly recommend you to go visit them if you can, or just check their website out. There is something called EcoWatch, which is based in Jayanagar. I personally did my apprenticeship there for a year and learned a lot. There is something called Bioenvironmental Solutions that is located, I think, towards Jakkur or something. So if that is nearer to you, which is I'm sure that is nearer to college as well, you can go visit them. They do a lot of building construction and alternative building materials kind of work. Arghyam deals specifically with rainwater harvesting, and they are based in Indranagar. Hasirudala is based in it's very far near Whitefield. It's near Whitefield, Hasirudala, and they work mostly on waste, say organic waste or plastic recycling, those sort of things. And Sahas is an e-waste recycling center that also is based in JP Nagar, and they have various centers in BBMP where if you have an old phone or a pen drive or a hard disk or even a keyboard or a mouse that is not working anymore, you can go and give it to Sahas, and they will very scientifically and in a safe manner they will recycle it, and they'll make sure that it does not go to the landfill, and all the materials are disintegrated in a safe manner and it is reused. So this is something that you should definitely check out, and you should keep an eye on if you are definitely interested in sustainable development. So with that, I will
Madam,
end it.
can I
Yes.
suggest one more? Actually, at IAC Bangalore, Dr. Ramchandra is running Center for Environmental Sciences. and
Okay.
mostly dealing with these problems only. And it's
Mhm.
one more you can add, as I know, because he's close friend of
Okay.
mine, and he has
Okay.
published many articles on this. Even using GAS, they are solving the problems.
That's
Remote
wonderful.
sensing and GAS.
Okay, thank you so much. I will definitely add it. I
Yeah,
see it
yeah,
has a lot of initiatives when it comes to
right,
scientifically approved and scientifically sound methods.
correct.
So very good suggestions, sir. I will definitely add
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yes. There are many other organizations, of course, that's a disclaimer I want to give, that it's not just the ones that I have listed. I will definitely share this presentation. I'll request Shivana sir to share it with all of you. You can take a look, but there are many other organizations that are working. So once you get to know about two or three of them, you will see that there are a lot of organizations that you can be a part of and take a look at. Somebody has said anything in Vijayawada or Vizag. There are definitely organizations there. I have personally been in Vijayawada several times in my professional career, and there are quite a few organizations. I can take a look and I can include it in the presentation before I share it, so that you can, yeah. Can I get LinkedIn ID? Yes, of course. There is the LinkedIn ID. I have put it in the presentation. So once you open it, it's the hyperlink is present and you can take a look. So yeah, with that, I would just like to say thank you for being very patient audience, for being a very participative audience and making it interactive. I hope there is some interest that I have gotten in all of you for thinking about the environment or thinking about sustainable development. And if it has, then my mission here is successful. So with that, I'd like to end the presentation. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask me. Otherwise, my personal contact is there in the presentation as well, and you can reach out anytime you think there is some collaboration also. Very, very happy to do that. Anything in TS? Pranav, can you please say what is TS? I'm not sure what the abbreviation of TS is for. Telangana. Okay. Yes, there are. Every state has a lot of organizations. So it's a very simple Google search, and that can be a homework for all of you. Just Google organizations on environmental development in Telangana or in Vijayawada, and you will get it immediately. So please make sure that you are looking at these things as well when you use the internet and even on social media. So it's not just for entertainment, that it's also for knowledge as well. So
Yeah, I can also suggest, madam, that
yes.
Anywhere, whichever state, wherever you are, pollution control board, if they are in touch, they can help a lot.
Exactly, sir. And even in Bangalore, there is a Karnataka Pollution Control Board. It is in MG Road, Church Street. There is also Lake Development Authority, LDA. They also work on a lot of water conservation and lake restoration. So there are quite a few organizations in any city you reside in India. So you should definitely take a look at it if you're interested.
Nice, ma'am. Thank you.
If there are any other questions, I'm happy to take. But otherwise, I know that we have reached the end of the session. It's 12 o'clock. And on a Friday afternoon, I don't want to keep you all waiting. So thank you very much. And again, special thanks to MBIT, Department of Civil Engineering, and especially Shivana sir for giving me this opportunity. I'd love to be a part of it in the future as well.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please tell me.
Madam, in Pondicherry state, there is some central pollution control board and everything is there. In spite of that, we are not able to get the environmental free zone in Pondicherry. Why it is dragging behind than other states, even though it is a very small state?
Yes, sir. But one good initiative that Pondicherry has done is that it has made sure that there is no plastic used along the beach and the coastal areas. So there is this promenade beach in Pondicherry. You're not allowed to take any plastic bottle there or dispose anything. So that's one good initiative that they have done. But why the Central Pollution Control Board has not been able to do anything is, as a mandate, when you look at its jurisdiction, it cannot impose any rules. Like the Pollution Control Board cannot impose rules. The government will impose rules, and what the Pollution Control Board does is that they'll see if the organizations are following the rule or not. So they do the inspection or the auditing. So those that's what I meant, that there are these political pressure or political factors as well that come into picture when it comes to such decisions, which we will have to think about. But definitely in Pondicherry, plastic ban is a very welcome initiative that has happened along the coastal zones.
Yeah, as you told that this energy conservation and energy, this alternative energy, we have solar power plant in Pondicherry Engineering College, but it is not being used. It is even if it is there, it is rarely being used, madam.
Okay. Then
And
that is
we
something.
are not getting anything, and they maintain for that another engineer one engineer will be there, one super engineer will be there, everybody is there, but no current, no supply to the Pondicherry Engineering College.
Yes, yes.
Why?
So, sir, definitely this is a valid concern, and it is very much to do with human psychology as well. So, if you are, if you are accessible to that college, you should definitely go and approach the head of the institution and raise this and sort of get the students together as well to do it like a small protest that can, why such a good initiative is not being used of. So definitely citizen voice and raising your concern is another thing that sustainable development always encourages. If you don't come together and talk about it, and if there is no awareness, then nothing can happen. So very valid point. It's there in a lot of places. There is solar water heaters, rainwater harvesting, but not fully used. And it is something that only collective action can help in such things.
Somehow it has been neglected. That is the investment has become waste, and they are not at all getting power also, and it has become waste, and recurring expenditure also waste.
Yes, exactly. The operational.
That is only my concern.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Nothing
It's a
else.
very
Thank
valid
you.
concern. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Any other questions or even feedback, I'm happy to take if anybody wants to share their thoughts or any other information that you think is important for this topic. Please chat box or share it while unmuting yourself.
Thank you, Anupama.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's nice to hear from you after a long time. Yeah.
Nice to see you also, ma'am.
Indeed, it was an interactive session, an enriching session, which took us all virtual also. So I thank you once again for your valuable insights for the sustainable development.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor.
I hope we have much more interactive sessions in the future. And I request the audience, if you have any questions, kindly post your questions in the chat box. We'll get back to you.
So thank you, madam. On behalf of management, Anupama, Sir, MBIT, Civil Department, as well as alma mater of Civil Department, I thank Ms. Anupama, guest speaker of this session. I was quite informative and virtual today. A lot of questions had been there. I would like to thank even our colleague Dr. Shivanna and Pradeepa for doing successful conduction of this session. And I thank all the participants for their active participation, starting from 10:45, started the mint, the questioning. It was a very wonderful session. So I hope the feedback, what I'm seeing, plenty of sessions has to be planned. Well, we'll think over of it. So with this, shall we conclude, Anupama, or to the participant, any more questions? I hope she has shared the LinkedIn profile as well. Mail will share the ID. So any questions are there, please communicate to her. She will answer it. Anupama, any? Nothing? Okay. Shall we? So with this, we shall break for the lunch and let us meet the second session at 2 o'clock. Thank you, Anupama, and all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So we'll all meet at 2 o'clock regarding nanotechnology. Bye. See you. Please, everyone, fill up the feedback link. It has been shared. Madam, can you put that link of forms here? Anita, madam?
Yes, sir, I'll share it.
Link is not opening.
Yes, now you can try. Asif? Fine. Asif?
Yes, sir.
Working, no?
Thank you.
The link. Oh.